Silvertone guitars. They're not exactly what you think of when you think of metal guitars, but do they have the potential to be? Today we'll be turning a Paul Stanley signature Silvertone into a super custom, super metal beast, the HellSpawn. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified each time a new episode is released. This is Trash to Thrash. For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. This season, I'll be rebuilding guitars sent in by fans of the show. I'll be rebuilding 14 guitars over 14 weeks, each with a unique and interesting backstory. I'll be refinishing, refretting, rewiring, whatever it takes to make these things into the guitars of their dreams. This is Trash to Thrash. Hello everybody, I'm Mark Murray and I welcome you to another episode of Trash to Thrash, the show where each week I take old beat up guitars and turn them into killer custom axes. And this week is no different. This week I'm going to be working on my customer Joseph's Silvertone Sovereign. It's a Paul Stanley signature guitar, Paul Stanley of course from the band Kiss, and boy does Joseph have a crazy plan for it. Here's a closer look at how Joseph's Silvertone Sovereign showed up at the shop. This guitar is the signature model of Paul Stanley of Kiss. Joseph bought this guitar about 15 years ago, and ever since he bought it, he's had plans to resurrect it and turn it into what he calls the HellSpawn. These guitars originally came in black, and when Joseph got it, it was black, but he refinished it in this green color. It's actually a really cool color, but for HellSpawn, it doesn't really fit. Here's an ad from between 2003 and 2004 showing Paul Stanley and Silvertone working together. This is him playing the Pro model, but they also made a more affordable special model shown here, which is what this guitar was. It looks almost identical to the Pro model, but this one doesn't have the binding, and it's sold off the shelf in a box as shown here, which is kind of unconventional for most guitars. When I build custom guitars for people, I love to hear the backstory. I like to hear their motivation, why they want the guitar to look the way it does, what inspired it, how long have they had the guitar, and I asked the owner of the HellSpawn, Joseph, these questions and more. He replied, "I bought this guitar in 2006 for $20. At the time, I was making weird computer music and wanted it to be more guitar-based. I wanted to move away from just programming everything and get a band together again. I had a whole plan in my head for making this guitar a wild centerpiece of a live metal hardcore show. Anyway, life happened and I moved away from metal and guitars for a long time. I always kept the guitars I had and intended to play them again. I wanted to work on the HellSpawn many times, but I just never had the chops to do it right. I experimented with painting it, but then couldn't get the electronics soldered back together. I recently moved and a bunch of stuff changed in my life and I started enjoying metal again. And by metal I mean stuff like deathcore, the Black Dahlia Murder, Swamp Beast, and Lorna Shore. I pretty much only really like the heaviest stuff I can find. Like, why have metal and then water it down with clean singing, sea shanties, or lullabies, or whatever else people like to stick in their metal breakdowns? That's always been my metal operandi. Balls to the wall heavy. I'm still learning to play again. I'm better than I was back in 2006, but still not great yet or comfortable playing anything publicly. But this guitar has been with me for so long and I figured now is the time for it to achieve its ultimate form that it was always intended to be. The heaviest death metal hardcore machine, HellSpawn." The way this guitar sits now, it definitely does not say HellSpawn. It looks like some kind of surf guitar. So the plan for this one is going to be to refinish it in black with a red burst on the edges. That way it looks like it's glowing, like it's from hell. And for the electronics, we're going to go with a set of bare knuckle pickups, an Iron Age kill switch with a red LED to match the glowing edges of the body, and a set of push-pull switches for each pot so that we're going to be able to control pickup selection, series parallel, and coil tapping. We'll do a matched headstock on it. We'll also be upgrading the tuners to a set of Goto locking tuners. We're going to build a new custom truss rod cover for it, and we'll christen the headstock with the guitar's new name, HellSpawn. Most of the guitars we build here start out with the same steps. I hand it off to Ryan, my shop assistant. He disassembles the guitar, organizes the parts, and sands it down. Gets it ready for me to start painting. This guitar needed quite a bit of work to get the body in good condition. So to get all the chips and dings filled in, I used wood filler and let it dry for about a day. They say you can start sanding on it and working on it in 15 minutes to an hour, but I found it's better to let it dry and fully cure for at least 24 hours. The neck actually had two different sets of tuners installed, so I'll fill all those holes, and you can see on the back of the neck there's a ton of little dings and dents. Whoever originally owned this must have constantly leaned it up against things and just slammed it down. You can see how much stuff I had to fill. This neck was in pretty bad condition. So I came back the next day and then level sanded it with my palm sander using 600 grit sandpaper. I sanded the back of the neck using 800 grit sandpaper. I didn't want to gouge into the neck using a palm sander, so I did it all by hand. A palm sander is really designed to be used on a flat surface, and since the back of the neck is curved, there's going to be a real small point of contact between the sander and the neck, meaning it's going to put a lot of pressure on the neck and probably gouge in. Now this body's looking good, and it's time to bring it into the paint booth and spray the first color on it, gloss black. I typically do 3 coats of the base color, and I'll come back and add the red on top of it. Chances are I'll have to add a little bit of black because I'll probably get a little bit of spray over on the black. But for the burst, I'm not going to be using rattle cans. If I were to try to use rattle cans for a burst, I would get tons of overspray. For this, I'll be using an airbrush, which you still get some overspray, but it's going to be significantly less than the aerosol spray cans. This is my new airbrush that I got from StuMac. It's a single action airbrush, and for things like bursts or solid color painting, it's a great airbrush. But if you want to do something that has more intricate artwork, you'd want a dual action airbrush, which in the future I'm definitely going to be picking up so I can do some lightning graphics and other types of really cool airbrush graphics. To get a clean black to red burst, that would be nearly impossible using aerosol cans. You might be able to do certain bursts with certain colors, but not black to red. I started building custom guitars years back because I wanted to have cool custom guitars for myself. There was no plan to ever sell them or work on other people's guitars. I just wanted to have cool guitars for my collection. To be honest, I never really even had plans to get good at painting. I just wanted to paint some Frankenstrat replicas for myself, which don't really have to be perfect if they're relict. But as time went on, I started to build cooler guitars with more interesting paint jobs, still using spray paint for my colors. I've been slowly upgrading and building my shop up, buying new tools and learning new techniques as needed. I recently just bought an airbrush to do better and cleaner bursts. You could see on the HellSpawn the burst is very smooth and nice, but I had to work really hard to get it like that. One of my big next steps to upgrade my finishes will be to invest in a line of paint colors that I keep on hand that I could run through my air compressor powered HVLP gun. Then I'll be completely off the aerosol spray can train. For the HellSpawn, we're also color matching the headstock, so I used the airbrush for that too. Earlier when I painted the body black, I also painted the neck black, because the back of the body, the neck, and the headstock are all going to be matte black. I love the look of a guitar that you flip over and it's just all matte black. Plus the feel of matte black on the neck is very superior over a gloss finish. It helps you slide around a lot easier and it's just very comfortable. We'll also be replacing the logo with the red logo, but it's not going to say Silvertone, it's going to say HellSpawn, because this is hardly a Silvertone anymore. Silvertone was introduced as a brand in 1916 and was sold through the old Sears catalogs. They sold radios and other consumer electronics, but they started selling musical instruments in the 1930s. Some of the old classic Silvertones from the 1960s are actually highly sought after, but most Silvertones are more aimed towards the beginner level market. In 2001, Samick bought Silvertone and started releasing some of the old classic models again, and in 2003, that's when they met up with Paul Stanley and started building his signature models. I remember being a young boy and looking through my mom's record collection and finding a couple of Kiss records. One of them was Destroyer, and it was one of the coolest album covers I had ever seen at the time. I didn't really know Kiss's music, but I thought their look was so cool. I loved how each character had their own take on the style, their story, everything about the look. And that's one of the things that made Kiss so successful. Kiss is a band that just won't go away. They've had multiple reunion and farewell tours, and the story with Silvertone and Paul Stanley started around 2003 when Kiss was coming back for one of their final farewell tours. They struck a deal and started making 2 different signature models for Paul Stanley, the Sovereign, which this model is, and another one that was a little more extreme, like a Flying V kind of guitar. Although he doesn't play Silvertones anymore, Paul Stanley did use these guitars on 2 Kiss live albums, so Silvertone will be forever linked with Kiss and Paul Stanley. Earlier I had thrown on the clear coat, so now the guitar is waiting and drying. During that time, Ryan and I are working on some other side projects. One of them being the truss rod cover. My shop assistant Ryan is a really good fabricator, so that's why I went to him to build a new custom truss rod cover for this guitar. We needed something really cool that was going to fit that name. Whenever I need custom metal work done, I always go to Ryan because he's really good at this kind of stuff. The original Paul Stanley truss rod cover and pickguard were made of mirror, which is cool, but it's not going to fit this guitar. So we did away with the pickguard completely, and we made a custom truss rod cover. We started by tracing the old truss rod cover and then modifying it onto this piece of steel. Then Ryan cut it out with his grinder. The grinder is a great tool, but it leaves some real rough edges on the part, so Ryan finished off the edges with the belt sander. This is going to leave everything real smooth. Then Ryan added some mounting holes, starting with a pilot hole. Then he opened the hole up to the appropriate size. Then he finished it up with this chamfer bit, which is going to allow the screws to sit flush and be countersunk into the truss rod cover. After Ryan finished cutting out the truss rod cover, he gave it to me to paint. I painted it gloss black to start. Then I came back and hand painted the side edges red. Since the headstock has the same burst as the body, this is going to be a really cool touch, especially when we put the HellSpawn logo on it. After a touch of polish, this thing looks great. To level sand this guitar, I used super acrylic sandpaper made by Eagle Abrasives. Whatever technology they use to make this sandpaper is very impressive. It's way better than any sandpaper I've used. It seems to last forever and can be cleaned off and reused. They sell a pack that comes with 600 grit, 800 grit, and 1200 grit sandpaper, which all have a Velcro back that could be attached to the included sanding block / interface pad. Eagle Abrasives says you only need to sand to 1200 with this product, and then you can start using your cutting compounds. I found this to be true, but you need to use a lot of cutting compound to get those scratches out. Typically, before I started using this type of sandpaper, I would sand to 2000, and then I would do 3 to 5 passes using Meguiar's 105 cutting compound. That would remove almost all the scratches. Using this sandpaper system, I'm finding I need to still buff it 7 or 8 times at least. But it's still a lot less work to buff it out a bunch of times than it is to sand the guitar over and over. I do my final polishing with Meguiar's 205 compound. I like using Meguiar's 105 and 205 combo. If you paint guitars or cars or anything like that, and you do buffing, leave your comment down below and let me know what system you like to use for buffing and polishing. On this guitar, we'll be adding a kill switch up here where the old selector switch was on the guitar. I drilled it out before we did the final paint job on the guitar, but after throwing the clear and everything on, the kill switch isn't fitting in. So I used a round file to gently remove some of the material from the inside of that hole. When you use a file on a guitar that's already finished, notice that I'm only filing downward. When I come back up, I'm actually lifting it off because I don't want it to chip upward and pull the paint off the top. It only needed a small adjustment, but now it fits in there perfectly. I already extended the wires for the kill switch and ran them through the body, and then added the back cover on. Now it's time to continue wiring it up and add the pickups. But they're not fitting in the body, so we're going to have to do some more modification. For this, we get the face shield out and the Dremel. For this, I'm just moving real slowly, just taking out a little bit of material at a time. It doesn't need to have a ton removed, but I'll still do it in a couple of passes just to be extra careful. Now the neck pickup fits perfect, and I got to do the same thing for the bridge pickup cavity. For this guitar, my customer Joseph chose to use some bare knuckle pickups. This is the first time I've used bare knuckle pickups, so I'm really curious to see how they sound. They have a ton of different models, but these are the War Pigs. He got them in black with black screws and bolts. Bare Knuckle says they designed these pickups to be an extremely high output pickup with a raw guttural tone and a smooth high end. They were originally made to be just all-out extreme metal pickups, but people have been finding that they work really good for jazz and fusion and all kinds of different genres. Next, I reinstalled the bridge bushings, which needed to be drilled out a little bit, and same with the output jack. Today I'll be using the Seymour Duncan wire diagram to wire up these bare knuckles. They use the exact same color code, so that'll work perfectly. We're going to do some tricky stuff with the wiring, so we'll be using this section of the diagram with the coil splitting and the series parallel for the push-pulls. For this guitar, we'll be using 3 push-pull switches attached to pots, like these. This big square piece mounted to the back of the pot is actually a toggle switch. These toggle switches will be able to control the pickup selection, coil splitting, and series parallel control. These are the awesome knobs that my customer sent me to put on the guitar. They were custom made by someone on Etsy, and I'm not sure if they're even for sale anymore. I think he grabbed the last 4 that were for sale. This guitar is going to have a master volume and individual tones for each pickup. But when you pull up on the volume, it's going to be a pickup selector. Notice there's no pickup selector on this guitar, so that push-pull switch on the volume is going to act as a switch between the bridge and the neck pickup. When you pull it up, it'll go to the neck pickup. When it's pushed down, it'll play the bridge. This is a cool trick that George Lynch uses to switch the pickups on his ESP guitars. They have 2 pickups, but if you notice, they always have 1 volume knob and no selector switch. The second knob is the neck tone, but when you pull it up, it'll activate a coil split on the neck pickup. The third knob is going to be the bridge tone, and when you pull that one up, it's going to activate a series parallel switch. So when it's down, it'll be in series like a regular humbucker, and when you pull it up, it'll put the 2 coils of the humbucker into parallel and give an alternate, brighter tone. The wiring on this guitar is all finished up, and so is the LED on the kill switch. You can see when I plug in the cable, it activates the light on the kill switch. The red LED accents the paint perfectly. This episode of Trash to Thrash is sponsored by Iron Age Guitar Accessories. You guys know I'm obsessed with kill switches. I put them in basically every guitar I build, but Iron Age makes a lot of other really cool stuff too, including custom picks. Here's a couple of Guitar Guts custom picks that they made me, and they do custom engraving, all kinds of different cool materials. You can see this one here is a acrylic spearhead. And they even make the pick of destiny. How cool is that? I also recently just got some custom Guitar Guts knobs made with glow-in-the-dark fill on the top. This is now going to be an option moving forward when people order custom guitars. These knobs are only available through me, so DM me or email me if you want them. But if you want to get your own custom engraved knobs with glow-in-the-dark filler in them, go hit up Iron Age Accessories. Of course, use GG-10 at checkout. You get 10% off using my code. So go click the link down in the description. Use the code GG-10 at checkout. Get 10% off your custom kill switches, knobs, picks, whatever. I love these guys and I think you will too. Alright, it's time for another one of my guitar updates. As many of you know, I had over 50 guitars in my collection at one point. I started rebuilding the guitars and selling them, trying to get my collection down to a more manageable level, somewhere around 20 guitars. Well, I've finally done it. I've hit 20 guitars. Since the last episode, the Stealth Splatter Kelly has sold, and I've also had the 4th guitar giveaway on my Patreon page, this time for the Jackson Roswell replica. I've now given away the Ibanez Proline V, the 94 Jackson Rhodes Concept, the Crackle Kelly, and the Roswell. Next up on the Patreon giveaways is going to be this Frankenstrat. It's equipped with the Seymour Duncan JB Humbucker, a Kaler Floating Bridge, and a Guitar Guts LED kill switch. To be entered into the raffle, go sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. It's $10 a month, but I always offer a free way to enter the contest too, so follow me on Instagram for opportunities to get in without being a patron. The links to my Patreon and my Instagram are down below in the description. The Stealth Splatter Kelly was actually part of a trade-in deal. Somebody traded cash and a guitar for the Stealth Splatter Kelly. That's a new thing I'm starting to do, is accept trade-ins as part of the credit for somebody's rebuild. So if you want your guitar rebuilt by me, send me an email to mark@guitarguts.com. And if you have an old guitar that you think I may be interested in that you no longer want, I might accept it in as a trade-in. I'm always looking for cool new projects to work on, and I'm often contacted by people who buy project guitars and never end up working on them, and I end up taking them in as trade-ins or buying them from them. Next, I installed the tuners, which are a set of Goto locking tuners, but they're not really fully seating into the headstock. So we're going to open the holes in the headstock just a little bit using this reamer. This is a great tool. You don't need to measure anything. It just slowly removes material. If you're real gentle with it, it's an excellent tool. These holes turned out really nice on the front and the back, but if you get too crazy with the reamer, you will chip the paint. Now the tuners dropped right in, and this headstock looks great. You may have noticed it earlier, but this is the first real good view you guys have got of the headstock logo for the HellSpawn. My customer picked out this font, and I think it looks awesome. What do you think? Let me know what you think about this logo down in the comments below. These tuners had a completely different hole pattern than the original tuners, so we filled in the original holes and drilled new ones here. Now the final steps were to install the neck, string it up, do the intonation, and set the height of the bridge. My customer Joseph wants this guitar set up in drop C, so that means it's going to be tuned a full step down, and then the top string is going to be dropped down another full step. Normal strings wouldn't be able to handle this tuning. It's a bit too low. They'd be flopping all over the place, so we're going to go with the real heavy gauge. We'll be using Ernie Ball's Premium Cobalt Strings 5612 set. Not even slinky. And now, are you ready for the reveal of the HellSpawn? It has finally achieved its ultimate form that it was always intended to be. The heaviest death metal hardcore machine. The HellSpawn. Wow. Look at this thing. I'd say we nailed exactly what Joseph was going for here. I love the theme of this guitar. I love the color choice. I love the knobs and the pickup selection. My customer Joseph nailed this guitar with the design and the vision. So a huge thanks to Joseph for bringing this guitar and this concept to me. I had a ton of fun creating it. The glowing headstock with the HellSpawn logo and the custom truss rod cover. I love the way this thing turned out. We got to start making more custom truss rod covers and pieces that go on guitars like this that match the concept of the guitar, because I love the theme of this thing. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments what you think of the HellSpawn. Do you like it better than the original Paul Stanley guitar? I definitely do, and I can't imagine what Paul Stanley would say if he saw it. He'd probably want it, I'm guessing. because in my opinion, this thing's way radder than when it started. Now let's plug it in and hear how these bare-knuckle war pigs sound. Alright guys, so what'd you think of HellSpawn? I think this guitar turned out so cool. I was never really a big fan of Kiss's music, and I'm not really a big fan of Gibson SGs, but I think the body shape on this guitar and Joseph's vision really turned out cool. I think it looks awesome. So let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of the guitar. Be sure to hit the like button on this video, and I want to tell you guys thank you so much for watching the episode. Keep sharing it on your social media. I really appreciate it. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to my sponsor, Iron Age Guitar Accessories. Remember, their links are down in the description below with the discount code, so if you want to go get a kill switch, those are the guys to go to. Also, go to GuitarGuts.com if you want to get the Guitar Guts signature kill switch, or if you want to get my signature pedal, the Kill Boost pedal. Both of them are available over at GuitarGuts.com, along with the Guitar Guts gallery. I just updated it, and it's really cool to look through. You can see a bunch of the custom guitars I've done over the last 2 years or so. There's actually a ton of them on there, so go click the gallery link at the top of GuitarGuts.com. Remember, if you want to be part of the Guitar Guts monthly guitar raffle, go sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. This month I'm going to be giving away the Jackson Roswell replica that I built back on episode 20 of Trash to Thrash. It's an awesome guitar. It's got an EMG 81 in chrome in the bridge, a Floyd Rose original, Jackson replica body painted in an awesome purple glitter finish, and a real authentic Jackson neck. So it's a killer guitar. Next month I'm going to be giving away another awesome guitar that I built here in the Guitar Guts custom shop, and I'll be revealing that guitar very soon to you guys. It's not quite done, but it's going to be the first time I've given away one of these. It's one of the most popular things people are always asking me about, so be sure to sign up to my Patreon page. Like I said, the CEO tier, the links are down below if you want to be part of my monthly guitar raffles. I also pull a couple extra names every time and give away a couple kill switches and some other stuff, so there's always some runner-up winners as well. And remember, you could find this show directly at GuitarGuts.tv. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next week. Rock on, my friends.